We are back in the year 1982, continuing our look at the Masters of the Universe toy line by Mattel. Previously, we took a look at He-Man's faithful companion, Battle Cat, and we also took a look at the amazing Castle Grayskull. But now it's time to dive into the original 8 figures released. The first series featured 5 heroes, one of which was He-Man, and 3 villains, one of which was Skeletor. And today, we'll be taking a look at the Lord of Destruction himself, Skeletor, here on Creed's Collection. Alright everybody, today we're taking a look at Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction, one of the most iconic villains of the 1980s. I mean, let's face it, this guy's up there with some of the greatest villains of all time, like Darth Vader, Megatron, Cobra Commander, and Mum-Ra. In keeping in tradition with 1980s villains, he's pretty over the top with a skull face and all kinds of awesome pagan imagery built right in. So without further ado, let's dive in and take a closer look at Skeletor. The first thing you'll notice right away is he has the 3-toed feet. Now there were a few different foot variations on Masters of the Universe figures, and we'll cover those as we get into other figures later in the series. His loincloth and armor look amazing. His pale blue skin along with the purple armor is a nice color combination. And while almost all He-Man figures have the same basic body, they at least are all super ripped. They are the most pumped up action figures you will ever see. Here's a close-up of his armor. Apparently Skeletor is a fan of Batman. And here's a close-up of his loincloth. I think that's supposed to be a goat skull on the belt buckle there. And here's the back side of his chest armor. You can see how it snaps into place, very similar to He-Man's. And then here is the back side also of his loincloth, and you can see how that snaps on as well. As long as we're looking at his lower back, here's a quick look at his copyright information. 1981 Mattel. I can't find any information on these figures being released before 82, so I guess the copyright was just grabbed the year before. Here's a close-up of Skeletor's face and head. You know, I never thought about it until now, but he kind of has like a Day of the Dead celebration look to him with the bright colors. And he's also a soft head. The original release Masters of the Universe figures, their heads were squishy. They were later released with a hard head. In addition to that, this is also a half-boot Skeletor, one of the first releases. They only painted the front of his feet on the first wave and not the back. The later releases of Skeletor had fully painted boots, and actually we're going to take a look at that in a future review. And now we're going to take a look at the articulation of a Masters of the Universe figure. They have a rubber band right here inside their waist, and that is how their legs are attached. So while they are springy, that's about it. You can't really do much with them. They don't bend. They do have arm movement here, and they do have a twistable head. They also have a spring-loaded waist, and we're going to show you that here in a second. For now, I wanted to take a look at some of Skeletor's accessories. He comes with one half of the power sword. There's a slot here on the back, and this actually links into He-Man's sword. And if you want more information on that, go check out the Castle Grayskull review. I go into it pretty deeply there. Skeletor also comes with this staff with a ram skull on the end of it. He uses this for his magical incantations. He's considered to be a dark sorcerer in most of the versions, you know, the comic books, cartoons, whatnot. And here's a close-up of the skull. As you can see, this thing is nightmare fuel. It's one of the most pagan-looking symbols I've ever seen on a toy. And I tell you, in the 80s, they could really just kind of get away with anything when it came to kids' toys. And I'm really glad I grew up in that era and got to experience all these amazing products. And now I'll take a look at the very minor damage to this figure. He's got some slight yellowing right here on the center of his back. And he has 2 tiny paint chips missing off each center toe. It's very negligible, you almost can't even notice. However, sadly, his spring-loaded feature no longer works, and that was why we waited to show it. Now when I turn him, he just kind of turns and stays there, which is a bummer. But that's okay, because here's what it looks like when it actually does work. And while I originally planned to have He-Man get knocked out by Skeletor, I guess it's just going to have to be the other way around. Oh yeah, Skeletor is down for the count. And now for our He-Man size comparison. All Masters of the Universe characters are exactly the same size, so as you can see, He-Man and Skeletor are directly in scale with each other. Everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my toy review for Skeletor from the 1982 toy line Masters of the Universe by Mattel. Skeletor is one of my favorite all-time villains. He was always crossing over into all my other toy lines causing trouble for the Transformers, for G.I. Joe, and even Star Wars. He was always a formidable foe no matter where he showed up. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. I love reading and responding to them. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it, and it would help my channel grow. I review a toy from my vintage collection every Wednesday, so I hope to see you next week and every week after, here on Creed's Collection.